Hi guys, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Lesley, aka Lesley Adina, here on YouTube, and I make videos all about luxury, shopping, sometimes Korea, so if that sounds like your thing, definitely consider subscribing. I upload twice a week and I would love to have you back. So for today's video, I thought I'd do an informative, like 101 style on Chanel. We'll be covering the collections, the abbreviations, how to read a Chanel tag, and how to decode and decipher product codes and serial numbers. Also, we'll be covering Chanel price increases over the years and decades, as well as Chanel sales. So I think this video will be especially helpful if you're somewhat new to Chanel, but I hope and I'm sure that I'll talk about some aspects that even the more advanced shoppers at Chanel will find useful or new to them. So without further ado, let's get started. First off, I want to cast some light on Chanel collections and abbreviations. So if you've ever looked at a tag that's dangling off the item in the boutique, which should look something like this, or at the tiny imprint on Chanel costume jewelry, which looks something like this, chances are you might have been a bit overwhelmed with the combination of letters and numbers, and maybe you couldn't really make sense of what those were supposed to tell you about the item. At least that's how I used to feel. But after some research, I'm quite confident in my deciphering and decoding skills, so I thought I'd share with you what I've learned over the course of the years, loving Chanel, buying Chanel, and researching the brand and the specifics of certain items. So let's get started. First of all, we need to talk about Chanel's approach when it comes to collections. And in fact, Chanel launches 6 collections per year. So here we go, and please excuse me if I might mispronounce the French stuff. I took French in high school, but that's about a decade ago, so bear with me, okay? So we have the Spring Collection Act 1, which is released in January, followed by Spring Act 2 in March. A lot of people in the luxe community refer to this collection as SS, or Spring Summer. So there's that. Then we have the Métier d'Art collection, which originates back to Karl Lagerfeld, in fact. He initiated this collection in 22. Anyway, that comes out in May. And then there's Fall Winter Act 1 in June and Act 2 in August. And lastly, the Cruise collection, or in French, Croisière, which is released in November. And take a look at the column in the middle with the letters. We'll be needing those in a couple of seconds when it comes to decoding or deciphering Chanel tags and jewelry stamps. That's just the quick initial overview. Feel free to stop the video or screenshot in case you're interested, but we'll get back to this overview throughout the course of the video when I talk about specific examples and show you how to decipher the codes and stamps on jewelry. So first off, jewelry stamps. I'll insert a picture of a very close-up shot of one of these stamps you'll find on the back of brooches and necklaces, bracelets, earrings. In this case, we'll have a pair of earrings that I'll be referring to. So it says A19 on the left, right? 19 obviously stands for 2019, so that's when they were produced and released. And the A, when we refer back to the table I showed earlier, we can tell that apparently these earrings were part of the Métier d'Art collection 2019. In fact, that was the Egyptian New York style collection and the last Métier d'Art collection where Karl Lagerfeld actually appeared on the runway. So as you can see, the stamp displays both the year and the collection. From what I've read while doing my research for this video, Chanel started doing that in 1993. Before that, from the mid-80s, the stamp only showed a number, one digit in front of the CC and one after the CC, and that represented the number of the respective collection. So now let's get into Chanel handbags and SLGs. That's a little more complex. And first off, I want to point out that there are 2 types of number and code combinations that you don't want to get mixed up. And there is first off the product or item code, and not to be confused with the serial number. I'll first go into the product codes. For instance, the Jumbo Classic flap in caviar leather in black with gold hardware has this product code. The product code isn't uniquely linked to one single particular bag, that will be the serial number, which I'll get to in a couple of minutes, but it's linked to a style of bag. So in our case, the Jumbo Classic flap, black caviar, gold hardware. So as you can see on the screen right here, the product code can be broken down into 3 sections. The first set of numbers, usually 1 letter and 5 digits, represents the reference or style of the product. In our example, A58600 translates to classic jumbo flap. The next section represents the material, treatment and hardware on the item. So YO1864 translates to grain calfskin leather with shiny gold hardware. And the last set of numbers represents the color of the item, in our case, black. Obviously, from just looking at those numbers, you wouldn't know what the codes translate to, especially because Chanel carries such a huge variety of styles, leathers, colors, etc. So what I'll do is I'll link a website that lays out the codes of the most popular styles, leathers and all that in the description box below. As for the relevance of this code, this is actually the number and letter combination that you'll find on the Chanel website, on the specific product pages, also on your receipt when you purchase an item, as well as on these tags that dangle from the item in the boutique. And also, depending on the item you're buying, there's also a sticker with that number on the box that the item comes in. Being able to read and decipher these product codes is especially helpful when you're looking into buying a Chanel item pre-loved, which at the moment is more relevant than ever because, at least in my country, all Chanel boutiques are closed, and Chanel is one of the only luxury designers that doesn't have a website where you can actually purchase items. You can look at them, yeah, at least at a few of them. Usually they don't include the entire collection online, and encourage you to go into the boutique to check out the rest of the collection. But with stores being closed right now, if you still want to buy a Chanel item, the pre-loved market is the only option for you at the moment, and being able to read and decipher the product codes is especially helpful if you want to make sure that you're buying an authentic bag, especially when you look at the picture of the receipt that the seller has posted and you're able to understand what those numbers and letters mean, you can check if the receipt actually matches the bag that the seller is offering. I managed to take a photo of a tag on a handbag when I was at the boutique a couple of months ago, so let's take a look at that one and see if we can decipher what the product code tells us about the bag. So as you can see, we have the 3-component product code in the center. The first row again represents the style, the second set of digits the leather and hardware, and the last row the color. So this is a large business affinity in grain calfskin, caviar leather basically, in the color gray. Above the product code you see a blue rectangle with 20p in it. The first 2 numbers identify the year of the bag, so in our case 2020, and the letter stands for the collection that the bag came from. Referring back to our table, you'll see that P stands for Printemps Collection Spring Act 1. So that was my quick rundown when it comes to Chanel product codes. Next off, serial numbers. Since the mid-1980s, Chanel handbags as well as small leather goods, or SLGs, come with an authenticity card. On the back it always says in several languages, we certify the authenticity of this item and confirm that it has been subjected to the most exacting quality control. This high quality is a symbol of the fine reputation of the trademark. Talking about quality control, I'll link my quality issues video on Chanel where I talk about the repair process of my jumbo classic flap after like a handful of times of wearing it. But I mean, that's what it says on the card. And they also have a serial number stamped on the back of the card, which I'm not going to show because apparently that would be helpful to people who create counterfeit items, which I'm not going to support, obviously. But yeah, it has a serial number on the back of the authenticity cards, and the exact same number is also on a hologram sticker inside the handbag or the SLG. The serial number is a 7 or 8 digit combination of numbers only, and yeah, as I said, the serial number is individual to every single item that leaves the Chanel factory. So yeah, that's one of the main differences between the serial number and the product code, which is the decode I talked about earlier. When you buy Chanel Pre-Loved, for example, looking at the serial number sticker inside the item is one of the main precautions you definitely want to make sure to tackle when it comes to gauging if the item you're about to purchase is authentic or not. Also, if the bag still comes with the authenticity card, definitely check if the number on the card matches the number that is on the sticker inside the item. You also want to take a look at what the sticker inside the bag actually looks like, because Chanel frequently changes up the design of the sticker. So I'll definitely make sure to link an authenticity guide in the description box below. It comes with photos of every single design of hologram stickers. So yeah, definitely check if the item you're about to purchase matches in terms of the design of the sticker and what it should look like for the year or series that the handbag or SLG is from. Another aspect I want to mention is that you'll often hear people, especially in the luxury community, say a bag is, for example, a 15 series or 26 series, etc. And this refers to the first 1 or 2 digits on the serial number. To put it simple, the higher the number, the newer the bag. So the 7-digit serial numbers are the older bags, and if they're starting with a 0, that's basically the first batch of Chanel items that actually came with a serial number. And when you progress, the higher the number, the newer the bag. So that's it for Chanel collections and abbreviations and how to decipher or decode serial numbers as well as product codes. As you might have been able to tell, I put quite a bit of research into creating these overviews and making sure that they are as accurate as possible. So if you appreciate me putting as much time into researching all that as I did, then please give this video a thumbs up. That would really help me in terms of the YouTube algorithm acknowledging my videos and pushing my videos. So yeah, that would be amazing. Please give this video a thumbs up. Thanks. As for the lineup of the rest of this video, I'll be going into Chanel price increases over the years and decades, as well as leather materials, hardware, and Chanel sales. So let's get into it. As for the price increases, I took a look at 2 very popular and classic handbags, and that is the Chanel Jumbo Classic Flap as well as the Classic Flap in medium large. When it comes to prices from several years and decades, there are a few resources online, and me being the research nerd that I am, I think I ended up having like 15 tabs open because unfortunately the longer I did my research, the more discrepancies I found. Honestly, I spent like several hours going through multiple reputable websites and ended up with at least 3 different prices for each year and currency. But this overview that I've put together is the boiled down version of my research and what I believe to be the correct prices. But feel free to correct me if you happen to have bought a classic flap in either jumbo or medium in one of these years and you paid a different price. Definitely let me know. I'd be super interested in that. Oh, and apparently in 1955, when Chanel released their 2.55 bag, it retailed for 220 USD, or the equivalent of 195 euros. And while obviously one aspect of the increasing price accounts for compensating for inflation and stuff like that, there are definitely other factors at play, such as increasing profit and maintaining the exclusivity of the brand. For instance, and please bear with me while I'm struggling at performing basic maths, according to my research, the inflation rate between 1955 and 2020 averages at around 1.3% per year. And if we were to apply this to a Chanel medium classic flap purchased in 1955 for 194 euros, today's price would be 948.31 euros. However, what does the medium large actually cost if you were to go and buy it at the boutique tomorrow? 5,150 euros. So approximately 4,200 euros more than the inflation adjusted price. I'll give you a moment to let that sink in. So how often do these price increases occur? In the recent couple of years, Chanel experienced a price increase every single year, and that usually is around September, October-ish. And usually the increase is about 5 to 6%, which Sounds little, but given the fact that we're talking about a handbag that costs several $1,000s or euros wherever you are in the world, it definitely adds up, and 5 to 6% definitely is a chunk of money. In the UK in 2016, I think, there have been 2 price increases, one in July and one in November. But I'd say from what I've read and heard while doing my research, that's quite the exception. Usually it's once a year, and I mean, that's definitely enough. Next off, I'll go into the materials used for creating Chanel purses. When it comes to the outside of the bags, there's a plethora of materials, from different types of leather to cloth to velvet, even patent leather and tweed, obviously, which is like quintessentially Chanel. Chanel is definitely known for the tweed, not only on their ready-to-wear but also on their handbags. Obviously, not every style of handbag comes in every material that Chanel offers, but there's definitely a huge variety and a huge choice. But one thing I do want to point out is that since the end of 2018, Chanel no longer uses exotic skins for their handbags or products altogether. I think the main reason they pointed out is that they were no longer able to ethically source the materials, so they took a step back from all exotic skins. When it comes to Chanel hardware on the handbags, one of the main questions is, are they actually made with real gold or is it just gold colored metal? The answer is yes and no. Yes, because on older Chanel handbags, the chains, the grommets, and especially the CC turn lock that you'll find on most of Chanel handbags actually were 24 karat gold plated. But since 2008, 2009, Chanel changed that, and since then the handbags come with gold colored metal, but there are no precious metals involved anymore. So how do I tell if my Chanel handbag features actual gold hardware or if it's just gold colored metal? Well, there are 2 aspects you want to look at when it comes to determining if you have a 24 karat gold plated hardware handbag or one of the newer ones with gold colored metal. Number 1, the bag will have a serial number that is earlier than a 12 series. So the authenticity card and the serial sticker inside the bag, which I've talked about earlier, will begin with a 12 or a lower number. And number 2, look for a small stamp on the CC lock. From what I've gathered, it is standard practice in goldsmithing to include a stamp to indicate what kind of gold or metal is used. This stamp on Chanel bags with gold hardware indicates that the hardware is in fact 24 karat gold. And lastly, can you get a Chanel item at a discount? The answer is yes. Obviously, there's the pre-loved market, which I've talked about in a couple of other videos, but that's not the aspect I'm going to go into in this particular video. I'm talking buying Chanel items straight from the boutique. Does Chanel have a sale? And in fact, they do. Chanel actually has a sale twice a year. Usually the first one is in the first couple of weeks of the year, and the second one is in June, July. And it's actually open to the public, so you don't need a specific invitation or anything like that. The only thing I want to point out is that from what I've heard, VIP clients get their first dip into the selection before the sale items actually go into the store. So the more popular items might be gone already unless you're a VIP client, which I most certainly am not. But still, the sale selection usually is quite good. So can you score a classic flap at like 30% off? Unfortunately, no. Handbags don't actually make it into the sale, but what you are able to find are jewelry pieces, shoes, and ready-to-wear, so essentially clothing items. And the sale is definitely worth checking out because usually it ranges from around 30% off up to 50% off. Usually shoes go 50% off, but depends on the style and how popular they are or are deemed to be. But still, even 30% off when it comes to Chanel prices is still quite a significant saving. So there you have it, guys, my Chanel 101 guide. I hope you enjoyed my video and that it was helpful if you were kind of confused with all the codes and serial numbers and all that. So I hope I was able to cast some light on certain aspects when it comes to Chanel that you might have not looked into yet or might not have understood up until now, so I hope I was able to help. If you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, and I mean, if you've made it to the end of this kind of lengthy video, I'd really appreciate if you hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed yet, and that would really help me. And obviously you seem to enjoy my videos, hopefully. I mean, you made it to the end, right? So with that being said, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, bye.